In this video, I'm going to be working on page 2, which is number 19 through number 23. Something happened on the first video and it stopped right at number 17. Sorry for that. So probably I'm going to make a video for each page. Let's see how it's going to work. So let's look at the value of the discriminant. Let's look at this chart and fill it together. So if you calculate the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac, and you find that it's a positive number, like for example 16, and this number is a perfect square. It means if you square root it, it's actually going to give you a number, plus or minus a number. So in this case, it's going to be something like this: a quadratic graph or a parabola passing or cutting, crossing the x-axis at 2 points. In this case, I have 2 real and rational roots, since the square root of 16 is actually a number, so it's going to be a rational root. If this discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac, is a number greater than 0, it's a positive number, like for example 17, and it's not a perfect square. It means when you square root 17, you're going to get an unlimited, unrepeated decimal. In this case, it's still going to be a graph passing or crossing the x-axis at 2 different points, but it's going to be 2 real and irrational roots. So the number of roots is going to be 2, and the type of roots is going to be real and irrational. Now, if you calculate the discriminant and you find that it's equal to 0, which is b squared minus 4ac, and you find it equal to 0, it means it's a graph crossing the x-axis at actually 1 point. So in this case, I have 1 real and rational root. If you have the discriminant to be a negative number, it means it's a graph that actually does not cross the x-axis, so it's going to be like flying in the air. So it's going to be either above the x-axis or below the x-axis, not crossing the x-axis. So I do have 2 imaginary roots, or you can say you have 2 complex roots. So any of those 2 words is acceptable. So this is the chart. You have to be able to tell the number and type of roots from the discriminant once you calculate the discriminant. Now let's move on to numbers 20 through 23. So let's work on number 20 now. Now in this question, they're asking me to find the type and number of roots of this quadratic equation. So I don't really need to do or to find what the actual roots are. I just need to find b squared minus 4ac. Now, so you need to know what your a is, what your b is, and what your c is from your equation. The a is the number in front of the x squared, so it's 3. The b is the number in front of the x, so it's -5, and the c is the constant, which is 2. So plug it in, your discriminant, and let's see. So b is going to be -5. As you can see, you put it in parentheses, and this is how you type it in your calculator. -4 into a, -4 into a, which is 3. I'm going to write it -4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 2. Now as you can see, I don't really care if they are in parentheses because they are all positive. Now -5 squared is going to be a 25 minus 4 times 3 times 2 is going to be 24. So 25 minus 24 is going to be 1. It's going to be 1. So as you can see, the discriminant is 1, which is a positive number, and the square root of 1 is 1. So it's a perfect square. According to the chart, I have 2 real and rational roots. Now 21 is the same thing, but as you can see, it's not written in standard form. You have to move the 2x to the other side by adding it, and remember to write it in order. So 5x squared plus 2x plus 9 is equal to 0. So that is in standard form. Now you can actually calculate the discriminant. So a is 5, b is 2, and c is 9. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. Plug it in. So 2 squared minus 4 into 5 into 9. b squared is going to be 4 minus 4 times 5 times 9 is going to be 180. So 4 minus 180 is a negative 176. As you can see, your discriminant is a negative number, so you have two imaginary roots. Now let's move on to number 22. Remember, you can use a calculator on 20 and 21, my pre-AP. Now let's move on to number 22 and 23. Now they're asking me to solve by factoring. Now, every time that you are asked to solve by factoring means you have to actually factor those two, or find those two factors. But before you do that, you have to change it into the standard form. Change it to the standard form. Now it's going to be, so basically subtract 12 from both sides. It's going to be x squared plus x minus 12 is equal to 0. AC, always find AC. AC is 1 times negative 12, since A is 1 and C is negative 12. So the answer is going to be negative 12. It means you have to multiply. To think of two numbers, when you multiply, you can get negative 12, and when you add them, you can get 1. Remember, my pre-AP, no calculator for you, but my academic, you can go to y equals on your calculator and put negative 12 over x, and you will then go to second table and you get all the numbers that could add up to a 1, and you'll see that the two numbers are 4 and negative 3, because 4 times negative 3 is a negative 12 and 4 plus negative 3 is a 1. So these are your two factors. You just put an x in front of them, and those are your two factors. But are they asking us to find the factors, or they're asking us to solve? To solve means to actually find what x is equal to. So set this one equal to 0 and solve for x. So x is equal to negative 4. And set this one equal to 0 and solve for x. So x is equal to 3. So every time they ask us to solve, it means you are supposed to find the roots. Or what you can do, since you found the factors over here, the roots are always the opposite. So if the factor is 4, like x plus 4, then the root is going to be a negative 4. If the factor is negative 3, like x minus 3, then the root is going to be 3. You can do that, or you can just set each one equal to 0 and actually solve. So these are the roots, and I just found x. Now let's move on to number 23. Again, 23, there's some extra work, like it's similar to 22, but there's one extra step that you have to remember to do. So let me wipe out number 22 and make room for 23. So let's work on 23 together. Now the first thing that you should do is move. The first thing that you should do is to So the first thing you should do is to actually move the 10 to the other side by subtracting 10. You do that, so your equation now in standard form is 3x squared plus 13x minus 10 is equal to 0. Now remember, you always have to find what AC is equal to. So A is 3 and C is negative 10. So AC is going to be 3 times negative 10, which is a negative 30. So it means you have to think of two numbers. When you multiply, you get negative 30, and when you add, you would get the middle number, which is 13. Okay? Now, on your calculator, you can go to y equals negative 30 over x, and go to second table. It will give you all of the numbers that would multiply to get negative 30, so you have to think which ones would add to get 13. Remember, my pre-AP, you have to do this mentally, so you have to think of all those that would multiply to negative 30, like negative 10 and 3, but they don't add up to 13. Now 15 and negative 2, oh, they add up to 13, so those are the numbers you want. So 15 times negative 2 is negative 30. 15 plus negative 2 is 13, and those are the two numbers that you want. So you just figure out what the numbers are, but you're not done. Remember, every single time you have to divide by a. Once you find those two numbers, remember to divide by a. Write it down, divide by a. Now in number 22, we did not divide by a because a is 1. And when you divide by 1, it doesn't really make any difference. That's why we didn't do it. So 15 divided by 3 is a 5. So your factors are x plus 5 and x minus 2/3. These are your factors. Remember, bottoms up. So 3 will go next to the x. It's going to be x plus 5 into 3x minus 2. These are your factors, but they're not asking us to factor. They're not asking for the factors. They want the roots. So the roots, you set each one equal to 0, and you solve for the roots. So let's do that. Let's set x plus 5 equal to 0. So you subtract 5 from both sides, so x is equal to -5. This is going to be my first one, or I could have figured out from the beginning, since the factor is 5, it means the factor is x plus 5, it means the root is going to be opposite, which is -5. Now, what is the second root? Since the factor is -2/3, so the root is going to be plus 2/3. But let's solve for it. So set x minus 2/3 is equal to 0, or 3x minus 2 equals to 0. Now by moving it to the other side, so x is equal to 2/3, so that is going to be my root. X is equal to 2/3. Even if you set this one equals to 0, also you're going to get x is equal to 2/3 as well. So remember, once you get to the numbers and you divide by a, your root is going to be opposite to your factors. So if the factors are x plus 5 and x minus 2/3, your roots are going to be -5 and 2/3. So we just solved, we just found x. Now let's move on. So this is the second page. We'll stop here and then we'll start on the third